So in this episode of the Greenfoot tutorials, we're going to look at good programming skills and how we can ensure that our programs are easy to maintain, add new features and develop by the way that we write them and the tools and the facilities that we use. As our game has more and more features, it's going to become bigger, there's going to be more lines of code, and it's going to be very easy for us to get lost or forget what's going on. So we're going to look at ways that we can prevent that, and obviously that will mean that our game is reliable, works well, etc., etc. The first good programming skill we're going to look at is comments. Comments are lines are written in normal English, so you don't need to have any understanding of code or programming in order to be able to understand what's being said. We're going to open the editor and we can see that I've already written some comments. One of the ideas about comments is that if you removed all the code, you could give the comments to another programmer and they would be able to write the code for you. So you really are trying to explain what's going on. Now there are two types of comment. There are single line comments that start with 2 slashes, as this one. And then there's the multi-line comment, which starts with a slash followed by a star and finishes with a slash followed by a star, and sort of follows this format. Now down here you can see that I have a line which doesn't actually have a comment, so I'm just going to pop one in. So we start, this will be a single line comment, and it's just going to say how this eating is actually referring to the method below. So call the eating method to see whether we can eat a power up close by. So you can see it's written in normal English. It's very easy to understand, and it just says what that following line is going to do. Now if you haven't commented your code, I commented my code as I went along because I wanted you to be able to see what I was doing in the code, and I wanted to help you understand the code. But if you haven't commented your code, then obviously now is a good time to go through and make sure you add comments. And you can see that down here I've not commented this function, so this might be an opportunity to do that. So here I might say that if we are close to our power up object, then we will eat it and play a sound. And actually this might be an opportunity here to actually put it in as a sort of a multi-line one. So if we are close to a power object, then, and you can see that the rest of the comment completes, and I'm just using the copy and paste facility to move my line back into the comment. So here we go, there's the beginning of the comment, and then there's the star slash for the end. So if we are close to a power up object, then we will eat it and play a sound. Now some people sort of wonder how often you should put comments in. Every 1 to 10 lines, depending on the complexity of the code. If the code is very complex, so you've got a mathematical equation, as in this example here, then you might actually put one comment followed by a line of code. However, when the code itself is quite explanatory and it's quite a sort of simple operation, then you may just write one comment and have sort of up to 10 lines of code. So now it's your turn to make sure that your code is really well commented. Next in our list of good programming skills is the use of methods and modular programming. Now we've actually already put some methods into our code, and you can see here where we did eating, actually we called this thing called public void. This is a method. This chunk here is a method, and whenever we want to check to see whether we can eat something, we call the method using its name, eating, and that finds this method down here titled eating, and obviously processes a bit of code, and when we get to here we return back to where we called it. So it's kind of like a little loop. We'll go from here, down, do the code, and then back to where we left off and carry on. Why use methods? Well, as our code gets more and more complex, it's going to be difficult to manage, and so one of the ways that we can manage it is by breaking it down into small, easy to manage sub-problems. And that's the primary concept of modular programming and of using methods, where you break a big problem down into smaller and smaller chunks until they are manageable. So what we might want to do here is clean up our code by removing the code that tells us how to move and turn for our butterfly into its own method. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by putting a comment. This method updates the position of our butterfly. Now, don't worry about why we use public void and some of the sort of syntax for now. We'll pick up on that in later lessons, and I probably already explained this to you when I did the eating method, but I'm going to go through it again. So I'm going to call this method update position. Now we need to put two curly brackets here. That's so that in the future, if we want to, we can pass some variables or some parameters across that this function can use. So it's like passing some information to another person that does a job for you, kind of like a waiter or a waitress in a restaurant passing information to the chef, who then does the cooking. I've now put a curly bracket in, which is an open curly bracket, and then at the end I'm going to put a closing curly bracket. So when we call this update position function, it's the code inside the two curly brackets that gets executed, and then we go back to the beginning. Now I'm not going to write this code again, I'm actually just going to copy and paste because it's a darn sight quicker. So there we go, let's cut and paste that code in there. But now I want to call this update position function. So again, just to save myself time and make sure I don't make any spelling mistakes, I'm just going to paste that in there like that. And you can see here it says update position. We use the normal brackets again. That's sort of like where we would pass the information between here and here, and then we put our semicolon on the end, and we might just want to say update position of object, or another comment there. So now every time the act method is called, we first update our position using this method, and then we use the eating method, which is down here, to see if whether we are in a position to eat one of our power-ups. And we can just check that. We've made a couple of changes this morning, so it's worth just checking. Don't make too many changes before you check and see whether your code still runs. It does mean that if you've made a mistake, you can just quickly pop back and check it. So let's have a go. Click run. Everything's happy. I compiled it, and off it goes. So there we go. That's methods and modular programming. The last good programming skill we're going to look at today is something about naming conventions and what names we give things. It's something we've not really had to worry about as yet, but as we move on through our programming, it will definitely be something that we have to think about. So, I mean, when I named this class, this thing, I called it Butterfly, and I gave it a capital letter B, and I said that that was important. You can see that with all my methods, when I've created methods, I've given them sensible names. So update position, it tells me what this method does. We haven't yet had to create any variables, but in the future, when we start to play around with variables, we will want to be making sure that we give them identifiable names that help us read the code, and this will make managing our code as it becomes more and more complex much easier. But for now, it's just worth you being aware that one of the things that makes your code more maintainable, easier to add features, easier to debug when you have problems, is using sensible names, and obviously bearing in mind that whether you use a lowercase or an uppercase letter is important. So now you've got a really good opportunity to go around, check your code, comments, methods, and make sure that your names are all sensible, and obviously your teacher will be there to help you. So good luck, and we'll see you for the next episode, where we will finally look at adding some keyboard controls and getting a bad guy in there somewhere.